Are we rolling?
Rolling. Oh, right into it.
Tell me. Okay, I need to know about your glasses before we start.
Oh, well, they are. There's no prescription in them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They were because a week and a half ago, I was putting my kid to bed and his finger went. This is a little cringy. Went through my eye.
Ew, how?
Yeah. He was just playing, it was just, but he's really strong. And I was just like, ow, ow, ow. And I had to go to the emergency room and yeah, it was like one of the apparently there's a lot of nerve endings in your eye.
Apparently.
And I had to, and so I had to have this anyway, I went to the emergency room. I had all these like numbing drops and I had a contact in for a while. Anyway, so one of the things that can happen when you have an eye injury is it can get re-injured. So I was a little scared to be like around him again. And so I was just like, I had one of those. I was like, those will do.
They look great. You look dope.
Thanks.
You look really great.
I feel fun with them. An actor loves a prop. So
So like if you have so like whenever you have like a real point to make, you take them down.
Yeah, I feel like I know.
Yeah, or you'll take them off. You put it here. You put it in the mouth.
Gesture.
Oh yeah. Love a prop.
Love a prop.
Speaking of which, Beth Ann is the directress who just directed me in Measure for Measure.
Directress, I like that.
Yeah, at Smith Street Stage, where you are you the artistic director?
I am. Yeah.
Bravo on that.
Thanks.
So cool. That was your first baby, huh?
Yeah. First baby
with your husband, I should say.
Yeah,
Jonathan Hopkins.
Right. We started it not as husband and wife, but as boyfriend girlfriend, which was. So dumb. It's like, I met this guy, I thought he was amazing, and I was like, I wanted to make things with him because that's kind of how we started. We started creating characters with this company out in Jersey, After Shakespeare Company. Mm-hmm. And then we're kind of encouraged to start creating, and we just got the bug and we couldn't stop. So that's how that kind of happened.
That's
so
like the sort of foundation of your romance, huh?
Yeah, totally. Because we were just inspired by each other's ideas, and we actually kind of like co-directed the first workshop that we did of Romeo and Juliet with two other people. This guy came up to me and said, "Hey, I have an idea for a 2-person Romeo and Juliet." I was like, "Well, that sounds intense and terrifying. Of course I'll do it." And then that guy says, like, "I think actually we need 3." I was like, "Well, I think you need more than 3, but sure. Yeah, let's try it with 3. Whatever you say, you're the boss." Right. And then that guy got a gig, took off. And then it was like Jonathan and I just sitting there because he has just said, "Hey, I think Jonathan could be a part of this." And I was just like, "Okay, yeah, he's great. We've worked on projects before."
Oh, this was
actors.
Before you guys were dating?
Yeah, this is before we were dating.
Jesse told me that there's some stickiness, but you were with someone at the time, right?
Yes.
Oh, well.
Yeah,
sorry.
I was in a relationship for 10 years before that.
That's a long time.
It's a very long time.
All right, well, you gave it a good go.
I did. It
And
didn't
then
work out.
No, clearly not. Here we are.
But I think we're both better for it.
Sure, I'm sure. And so you guys really got together during that Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, it was just kind of, well, the project had become like really important to both of us. And then we didn't want to let it die, even though this one guy who said it was his idea to do Romeo and Juliet had taken off. And we were just like, oh no.
Just the two of us now.
What are we going to do?
It sounds like you guys are just bullshitting, like you just wanted to like hang out with each other.
Well, we did.
Okay, well, there you go. Okay, well,
yeah.
Now you hang out with each other all the time, and this other little person.
And this other little Joy.
Yeah?
Yeah. 3-year-old Joy. Just turned 3.
What's his name?
Calvin.
Calvin
Dean Hopkins.
Calvin Dean Hopkins.
Yes.
He's a stunning little boy.
Yes, he is.
He's so cute.
Yes, hair for days.
As do you, actually.
Oh, we get, he's adopted, but people think that because we have the same color
Gorgeous
hair and same
color skin also.
A similar skin color, yeah.
Yeah, you look, I mean, he looks just like you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of a strange thing because people will, even when he was born, he had a head full of hair, and I was in the park, and a fellow mom saw me and said, "Oh, he must have had a lot of indigestion there." Right. And I was just like, "Well, didn't grow in my belly, but I bet somebody did." Yeah, I do. I wanted to get comfortable saying it because I never wanted him to feel like it was strange or like a secret.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's you're adopted, and that's what makes you special and beautiful, and that's your journey. So like, own it, right?
And it's also your journey, right?
And yeah. Yeah.
What was that journey like? When did that start?
It started, I mean, I'd always been kind of interested in adoption as something that could be on my path, but it wasn't until I wasn't able to conceive that it was like, okay, we're real, I really do want to do this, because it wasn't important to me to give birth, but it was important to me to have a family. So then once I kind of got through the challenging bits, which are, okay, this body isn't doing what I want it to do.
It's so crazy because it does so many other things. Like you're a physical actor. You dance beautifully. Like you're so healthy. It's kind of amazing, like how nature prioritizes things. Mm-hmm. Like this is what your body was built to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
This and not necessarily that.
Yeah.
Without.
And there was no like rhyme or reason to it. I couldn't be like, oh, it's because I have this. Like I went to doctors and I was just like, hey, so is it him? Is it me? Is it that?
And you did all those tests and stuff.
Yeah, we did all those tests, and I was just like, tell me what I should be doing differently. And they said, nothing, keep doing what you're doing. And
wow.
I mean, I was in my early to mid 30s. So there was that factor. But other than that, there was really no reasoning for it. So it was strange. It was really like a real argument with my body to be like, why? And I in hindsight, I can understand why, because that wasn't my kid. That was my kid, but it's hard to tell somebody that, like, I try to have these conversations with women now who I know are struggling, and I say, you might not want to talk about it now, but if you ever want to talk about it, like, it's hard to say, like, that's just not your baby. Like, this is your baby. And you just like, and when I held him for the first time, it was just so clear and so, everything went away. All of it just gone.
Really?
Yeah.
How? How'd that happen?
I don't know. I was so scared, right?
When you met him?
Yeah. I remember I was sitting in the waiting room. And the birth parents, didn't want to meet us, didn't want to see us. And that was hard, but that we have to respect their wishes. I hope they change their mind someday, because I would love for Calvin to have that kind of conversation if that's something he wants. But we sat in that waiting room, and we didn't know, and then a nurse would come in and go, he's really beautiful. Oh. He's got a lot of hair. And I took a picture of Jonathan sitting there, and he started crying, and he's like, I don't know if, and I was just like, why are you excited? Like, what's going on in your brain right now? He goes, I don't want him to think that I'm scared. I want him to know that, like, anyway, just all the feeling, all the things that go along with that, it's similar. And then it gets really similar to the people that I know who've had, birthed their own children, and then you don't know what to do.
Oh,
they say here's a little burrito wrap for your baby. Now go forth.
Really, who knows what to do ever? It's okay.
Yeah.
We have no idea what we're doing.
We have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah, it's all. We're just flying by the seat of our pants.
And then we lived in a hotel for 5 days. And I had nothing. I had no things.
Like nothing to take care of.
I went to Target and I had like 18 panic attacks before we met him, because I was like, you just like the walls of baby things. I'm like I didn't have a wipe. They just called and said, "There's a little boy," and I said, "Okay."
So you tried for years to get pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I tried Clomid for a while, which is like that kind of thing that boosts up your egg count.
Okay.
Thinking, but I really it didn't agree with me to kind of mess with my head a lot.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, if this is like the lowest form of like what can and I worked a lot on my head, getting my head screwed on straight. So
you did a great job at that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But to add to that, and and then it seemed like, listen, I want a guaranteed family. I don't want a maybe family. And since it wasn't important that it be from my body, I was like, this is an obvious choice. So that's when that decision was made.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because it was always in the back of your mind.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
How do you sign up for a thing like that? What are the steps you take to adopt?
We kind of did a little bit of research on adoption agencies, domestic versus international. And I think it was Jonathan that said, I think we should do domestic. And I said, that sounds okay with me. We kind of, go back and forth. How about this? How about this? And then we found this agency, Friends in Adoption, that was really inclusive. And we liked that.
What do you mean?
Started by a bunch of like hippies in the 70s, just like all different types of families, single mothers,
Right.
Not just, I guess, traditional man and woman at a certain age. There's also some like older people, gay couples. And we did a seminar, upstate, in upstate New York, and had a weekend of just kind of learning about what it is to be an adoptive parent. And they had some interviews with children who had been adopted, now adults who had been adopted, to talk about what it was from their experience in being adopted, and also in the reverse, like parents who had adopted and their kind of stories. So it was really kind of a great way to go, okay, we really want to do this, right? And we're just like, yeah, we definitely want to do this. So we took a second breath and then said, okay, and we dove in and started doing all the research. You basically make a website for yourself.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Like a cute little,
like a cute little, like, hey.
This is me.
Hey. The birth parents choose. They choose who's going to raise their...
Oh, so they chose you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they chose us. They saw us. And
when did they choose you? Like, what was the timing like?
I think it was pretty quick.
So you had,
for our situation.
So you had
signed
like
up
that. For this great organization called
Friends in Adoption.
Friends in Adoption. Mm-hmm. They're really inclusive. You went to this retreat.
Yeah, like a weekend retreat. And then we signed up, like, I think a month later back in Brooklyn, because they come to Brooklyn sometimes and they'll say, and do little, like, one day kind of seminar things and stuff like that. If
That's
people are
fantastic.
Yeah, it's really great. I haven't really investigated as much as I want to yet, but there is supposedly a good amount of adoption that happens in Brooklyn, and there's communities about that. I just haven't sought that out yet. I think just getting through infant and toddlerdom, but now that he's like starting to become more aware of like who he is and what he looks like and what he is and what he's not, like I said, what makes him special. I think it's time to start seeking that out. So he has communities where he not only it's important for us to live in a diverse community because he's a different race than us. But it's also important for him to have people in his life that have experienced, every adoption story is so different, but, but different type, the same types of things. Like, yes, I also didn't grow in my mother's belly.
Right.
If nothing else, that like you have that in common, right?
Yeah. I just wonder how important that is. Like, it's so funny. Like, I remember when we were growing up, there would be these like TV shows about adoption, and the kid would find out later in life. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That would they would keep it from the child for so long.
Yeah, that was something that was done. I don't know if I
they
could say
wanted
the
the child
year.
to feel bonded and to feel normal, I guess.
Yeah, and then it was and then you sit that, and it's like the birds and the bees conversation. You sit down and you say, by the way,
or like coming
you're
out.
adopted. Yeah.
But opposite.
Mm-hmm. But no, that's not what was at least told to us. The one thing is that they wanted the child to, as soon as the child was born, to get into our arms as soon as possible.
Oh, tell us about that.
That was important.
Yeah.
Well, Calvin was born on a Thursday, and we met him on a Saturday morning. So there's that.
Wow. So you were in the hospital.
Yeah. It was amazing. I'll never forget it.
Tell me.
It's just the overwhelming feeling of that you're like, your life is about to change, but we were also felt really unprepared. I was kind of, they said it might be a year to 14 months. And I'd waited so long to have that. I'd just been so ready for so long that when we went live, we had just closed Lear, just closed King Lear, and then our website went live, which meant that we were available if anyone was interested, and then they said, well, 12 months to a year. So I didn't have a wipe, Daniela. I didn't have anything. I was like, don't throw me a shower. Please don't throw me a shower. I can't handle it. I don't know when this baby is coming, because I've also...
But it felt like you were pregnant. It felt like this was the beginning of having a baby.
I don't know.
Like you went live.
No, I went live, but I had to kind of forget that it was live. I had to kind of forget that there might be a baby in my life, because I didn't know... I'd heard a bunch of stories at the retreat that basically were like, you might not... It might not take... because there's a month waiting period. So even though he felt like mine from when I held him for the first time, and I know this is like what happens, right? Like you have, like the birth parents needed to have that time to say, we might have made the wrong choice. They needed that. I totally respect it. I totally know that time needs, but for me, he was mine. From that first moment I held him in my arms, and I had to be ready for him not to be at any point for that first month. And that was really hard. So everything felt like it needed to just kind of be slightly temporary in case my life changes back. We'd heard stories about people who, families who said, okay, I do want my child to be adopted. And at like 3 months. And then, there's one story. I think it was like 3 or 4 months old. The woman was pregnant and said, I want my child to be adopted by this couple. And then when the child was born, the birth parents changed their mind. Mm-hmm. And they had been with this woman since she was 3 months pregnant, waiting.
Wow.
And so after
like
hearing...
getting the nursery ready, the whole thing.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I'm not buying a wipe. Don't do that.
Because we don't know for sure.
Yeah, but so that's why I'm at Target going, I need to get all the things.
Diapers.
Diapers.
Formula.
Yes, because that's not happening, right?
And also thank God for formula.
Thank God for formula. Formula is great. It's a great option. I know. I mean, listen, I know.
Thank God for formula.
Thank God for formula. Everybody has a different journey, and that was ours.
How long you went live, and then how long was the turnaround?
Well, there was two times. We went live, and yeah, like I said, Lear closed on a Sunday, and we got called on a Monday. And that was a different situation that didn't work out.
Wow.
And then 2 weeks after that, we got the call for Calvin. But I had like a kind of 3 in my head. I'm like, the first 3 won't work. So just be prepared. Like, I just wanted to like toughen up my exterior because I just felt really fragile.
Yeah.
So even as we were driving to Rhode Island, I was like, they're going to call in a second. They're going to call in a second and say, turn around. This isn't it. But of course that didn't happen. So like every time I just kept waiting for it to go away.
Wow. It didn't happen.
It did not happen. He's still here.
Wow. So what were those first like 3 months like?
Exhausting. Yeah. Yeah. And all of a sudden I was like, this is why people have kids in their 20s.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm exhausted.
That's a real thing.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. That's why.
Yeah. That's why.
Yeah. I mean, I was in my early 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And the sleep deprivation is
so
just
bad. It's so bad.
Yeah. And the only thing that got me through is thinking this is not going to be forever.
Yeah.
But it was bad. It was hard. It took it out of me.
Yeah.
In a way that I didn't expect. Like I thought I knew. I was like, I'm in the theater. We're used to late hours. Like, no, I had no idea.
But we're not used to early mornings.
Yeah. And also there's like an end to it. Like you beat yourself up for that show,
yeah,
right?
and then you can like sleep.
And then you sleep.
Yeah.
And our families are close enough that we can see them occasionally, but a little too far to be like the emergency contact. You know, we have Connecticut and Virginia. Oh. So it's close, but it's not like, can you be here in 5 minutes?
Right.
No, that's not, we don't have that. Jonathan's brother is in Brooklyn, but so we have him, but it's also like there's never enough. There's never enough help. And he helped us out with some real jams, he and his wife. Oh my gosh. There's one time when Jonathan came home from walking the dog, and the dog had jumped over a fence or something and was split his and Calvin was like 2 months old, and I'm just like, what? I didn't know what to do, but like one of us like, and I think this is pre-COVID, so it wasn't like we were all at home all the time like we kind of are now. So it was just like, okay, you have to go here, I have to go here, somebody said
we need another adult.
We need another us. Like what are we gonna do?
They got a lot of dependents here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Poor Gus.
Gus, how does the dog and Calvin, do they get along?
Yeah, they get along. Oh,
that's good.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good thing.
Did you like give the dog I don't know, like a receiving blanket or something to like acclimate him to having another person in the house?
No, that was another thing I was completely unprepared for.
Oh my God.
Like all of a sudden, like I'm literally
let the people know. Tell the dogs.
I'm Googling
someone's coming. What
happens with like infant dog article, help mom.
Yeah.
You know, because I was just like, oh no, what should I have done in the 9 months I didn't have?
Oh no, nothing. There's nothing you could do in 9 months.
But, I mean, maybe read a book about like how to like you said, like how to like assimilate like dogs and babies. Like
I didn't do it right, so don't take any advice from me. Bernardo's life is, oh boy.
Bernardo?
Oh, Bernardo. He barks so much. I never could train him out of it. I just don't know. Next time a cat, maybe. But I hope he lives a long, long time and I don't have to worry about that. But I just never figured out how to train a dog.
Yeah.
He's been great with the kids, but he's not great with kids in general.
Okay.
Or people. Or dogs.
Sorry about that.
Anyway, but Gus is good.
Gus is good when he's inside. He's pretty good, but Yeah, he's 6, so it's a little bit easier. He's not like a pup.
6 years old.
Yeah, so he's getting tired and old and not as interested. Yeah, he kind of keeps to himself, which is good.
That's very good.
Yeah,
I like that a lot, Gus. Good for you.
Yeah, but Calvin's like slightly interested in him, not a lot, but a little bit. And I'll be like, throw a ball. Gus is like, you think I want to go get that or something? Go, Gus. Good boy. And sometimes he just goes over and kisses him, and my heart melts and I die.
Just a little bit of death.
Just a little slow death.
How did you handle directing this play that was really hard, actually pretty hard? Measure for Measure is a problem play. And it's problematic in and of itself in the writing, but it's also problematic as a person in 2022 looking at a play that's basically about sexual assault and the minimization of women's bodies and autonomy, etc. Like, how did you handle working on a play that was so dark and deep and troubling? You did a beautiful job. And
I had a lot of help.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And being like a toddler mom to this like little cutie pie. How? That was a lot of long hours.
It was. Yeah. You don't do it all the time.
Right.
You do it when it's important, and this felt like it was an important play to do right now. We chose it back in I think February or March, before some things happened,
Right.
And then more.
Well, you could say what things happened.
Yeah, when Roe v. Wade was overturned, and then it felt like.
And also Iran, right?
Yes.
The revolution in Iran
absolutely.
happening right now.
That happened during the run. I mean,
it happened opening night
in September, and I was just like, there's never. Yeah, these things just unfortunately kept happening to make this play be like, thank God we're doing this play. This is so important right now. And it also felt like, I mean, did you read about like the water turning red all over the world, like what they're doing right now?
I did not, but do you want to educate us?
Just a little bit, which it was an artist was turning the water in the fountains red in Iran to kind of protest the death. And it was happening. It happened in Washington Square Park during our run,
which is interesting because the one of the beautiful images that Beth Ann conceived of was was me.
Yes,
having put like a really bloody axe in water to turn it red.
Oh,
it was like really prophetic.
I remember, one of the things that, as you... Unfortunately prophetic, yes. Yeah. That I was just like, Raquel was sending me stories to be like, oh my God, this is happening. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's like...
Unfortunately, it's like we can see it happening because we're watching it in real time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something about Basins of Water. There was also a show at BAM, and I'm forgetting the title of the play, but there was a show at BAM that had this like beautiful circular kind of basin of water that was a light leading up. And I was just like, of course it's BAM, so they had a couple more bucks than we had. Yeah. But, I was just like, oh my gosh, yes. Like we're trying to cleanse ourselves, but we feel so dirty.
Yeah, we do. We do.
But one of the ways, to answer your question, one of the ways that you do, like, I think that you do something like this is you try to listen more than you speak. You surround yourself with as many people that you trust as possible who do the same thing. And with Shakespeare's words, especially with the women's voices, you're not always given the words to say. So yeah, it's that quiet that you're like, oh, she stopped talking. That means something. Especially with the more verbose characters, and it doesn't have to be Measure for Measure. I mean, it could be Midsummer, probably one of his more lighter plays. Like all of a sudden, like, where is Helena's voice in the end? She just vanishes. This woman who speaks so much, and you're like, what happened? Titania also has so much to say, and then quiets down. And I look at those, and I think from doing enough of them as an actor, I want to give that gift to the women that I cast as a director, because I think for me, it's like, oh, and that's why we have to keep doing these plays.
Tell me more.
Well, especially doing an older play that's been done time and time and time again. You get criticism about like, oh, we should be doing more new plays, and we should also do new plays. But I think there is a lot to be said for these old stories, because I do think that Shakespeare's writing allows us this depth, this bottomless depth, where there's interpretation and a constant learning that I have not found the bottom of yet. So as long as I can say that, I think I'm going to keep digging.
So I have a fascination with old texts in general. I sing in Yiddish. The Torah itself is interesting to me as a why'd that stick around so long? And Shakespeare too. And I think there's something to be said about the reinterpretation.
Yeah.
The way we can see history and say, no, thank you. Pompey's going to be a lady now. And we're going to place it so that we have agency over the history we are making right now.
Yeah.
And I feel that way about when I'm singing in Yiddish, and I feel that way when I'm discussing Torah or learning Torah or referring to Torah. It just feels like, cool, that's the way it was done. How do I want to take that information, rearrange it? I mean, with Shakespeare, you get to rearrange it and then see it manifest right before your eyes.
Right.
But I do think that, even with philosophy, right, even with like the Torah, let's say, right, these ancient things, how do I rearrange it so that the history I'm making now is one I want to be a part of?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So like you gave me the mic with Pompey, who's usually a male character, who's this fool, who's... and we've made a whole other understanding of that play just by changing the gender.
Yeah. And I think it's exciting. I think it's surprising. I love the idea that maybe this is the first time people have seen that play, and the next time if it's played by a man, people would say, oh, it lost something for me. And
I thought that was...
Yeah. Also, as a woman and an actor who likes to do these texts, it's frustrating. I think that's actually where it started from. It's frustrating. You look at like the audition call and be like, all right, I could be that one or that one.
Right. I could be the whore or the saint.
Yeah.
I could be Hermia,
the old lady.
Right.
Yeah.
Or the old lady.
Yeah, the old lady or the ingenue.
Well, that's the way the world saw women. So here we are.
Here we are.
That's why these old texts are interesting, because here, all of a sudden, we understand the wiring in our brains on paper. Oh, that's what you think of us, right?
Yeah.
So in Measure for Measure, we sort of switch out these characters. I mean, just because they have female bodies,
So let's change the narrative for our children, right? I mean, and that's one of the reasons why we keep doing plays outside, because it allows all sorts of people to come, not just the people that buy tickets. Like, you can come back, you can see it again. And I think when we did Caesar and we cast the role of Julius Caesar as a woman and kept Calpurnia, Caesar's wife, as a woman, it felt like, oh, yeah, absolutely. You have to understand that when you do something like that, all of a sudden you have all these male characters stabbing a woman. What are you saying here? You have to make sure that you're saying you're saying the things that you want to say. Also, where you have to be. You can't just be colorblind. You have to be color conscious, because that's also saying something extreme, I think. and so you just want to make sure that the story that you're telling is one that you want to tell. You can't just be like, oh, I don't see color. I don't see race. It's like, no, see it. Really, really see it. Yeah. Because everybody else will.
I want to touch on color and race just back again when we talk about Calvin, because I think you're pretty conscious of that with him too. Like even Jonathan was saying like, he's trying to learn Spanish because, that I don't know, because Calvin is, I don't know, where's his...
Guatemalan, his birth mother is Guatemalan and his birth father is Caucasian and black.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Right, so from that Guatemalan side, I don't know, he just wants to like learn Spanish. Yeah. Like what is that?
We want to go there too. We want to experience the culture and because I think there's a power in being surrounded by people that look like you and sound like you, and there's like a kind of connection to his home there, even though his birth mother lived in here, so it's not like if he wasn't being brought up by us, if we weren't his parents, I don't know if that would have changed. I don't think that he would have been missing out on that kind of culture, because I don't know if they would have thought it was important. But I mean, if given that opportunity, wouldn't you want to dig in? And again, maybe we'll go to Guatemala someday and he'll be like, Mom, I'm bored. I want to go home. Yeah. And then you're like, all right, well, but like,
I mean, doubtful, because like it seems like a cool place to go.
I don't know. I think about like my grandparents and, where they came from. And I think about visiting those places and seeing that culture. And even if they weren't directly influenced by it, thinking about our ancestors and where I think there's something really powerful in that, in knowing where your people were from and what their routines were like. And maybe he'll notice something that is something that's like deep embedded within himself that he wouldn't have found even in New York. I mean, we have this great place that we live, right? But like even here, it's limiting. So let's broaden that if we can. Why not? I think we can all learn something from it, from other cultures. And I would hope that maybe he'll be influenced by it. Or if not, he'll just learn a little bit about the people who, if he hadn't left the country, where he would have been living, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it just seems like such a gift to you. Like that you get this window into Guatemala and wherever else. Like our first guest on the podcast is a stay-at-home mom, and she always says, she's Neha from Mother Entitled, and she always says like, don't stay home or work based on what you think is best for the child. Do it for you. And it just seems like, I mean, yes, I totally think that ancestry for me really resonates and is a big part of my life. It might not be for Calvin. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it could be cool.
It could be cool.
But for you, what a gift to get to know him through this culture. Through this, I don't know, Jonathan, through learning Spanish. Like, what a way to honor him. What a way to respect him. What a way to, like, be curious about your own kid. That's a gift. And that's a gift you wouldn't have had if you didn't adopt.
Yeah.
Are there other things like that you feel like, oh, I get this particular experience of motherhood that maybe I wouldn't have had?
Well, I think about personality a lot. I think about like what kind of personality he has and how it's different from me. And I don't know. I can't speak to like how like maybe you think about your own children and see yourself in them.
I do.
Like your own personality.
Yeah. And I see my family and I see Dan's family. That's a real thing.
Okay. Yeah. But it makes me think a lot about like nature versus nurture. Like how much is he, but he definitely makes faces like Jonathan. Like Jonathan has a rubber face and he's all like, ooh, pulling little faces. And Calvin totally does that. And I love it. But it makes me wonder the things that aren't being influenced by us, that are just
His
him.
nature, yeah.
Yeah, he's so active. He is so brave. And that was something that was really important to us, because I don't know if Jonathan and I see each other as fearless. I think we work at it really hard to be brave and fearless, but he just had it in him, like from the get-go. You know, not that he doesn't like to, you know, sit in my lap every once in a while and get a cuddle, but he had to go. He had to try it. He had to jump off that cliff. And I remember being nervous about the things that he would do, of course, but I didn't want him to know that I was scared.
Yeah.
So we tried to, as much as possible, put our hands in our pockets. I remember there was like one time when he was in the bathtub, and he definitely could have sit up by himself, but he was like kind of slipping, and I was with him, and Jonathan's like, just let him, he can get up by himself. He's not going to drown. You know, there's not enough water in there. He can just, you know, he kind of like, and he shook himself off, and he was fine, and he didn't even cry, and he doesn't cry a lot. He cries a lot when he doesn't get his way, but he doesn't cry because he's afraid a lot. I mean, he got a shot the other day, like his annual like flu shot, and he didn't even make a sound. He just like watched it go in. All right, what's next? I was like, who is this? Where are you from? He didn't get that. He's not picking up on that from me. I think that's something that we've been able to kind of say like, wow, we don't see that in ourselves, but I don't want to mess that up. I don't want him to take on my fears.
That is so cool.
It's really hard, and it also like makes him like jump down, like when we go down our 4th floor walk up, like jump down, like, oh my God, 3 sets of stairs. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's so cool that you can see him like from that perspective, like, oh, I could nurture him out of this. Ness was very brave and is very brave and very independent. And I just like really just wanted to cuddle more. I was just like, you know?
Yeah.
And I try very hard to just let him be, because he is extroverted. He is that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there other things about him that you're like, wow, well, I think also that even that interaction with the person at the park where you're like, I have to maintain a level of like honesty and integrity that you may not have had to contend with.
Yeah. It sometimes makes people uncomfortable. Like if he fall, like there was a time when he fell. I remember there was a time specifically that he like kind of fell down in the park, and it wasn't like a big crash. He just like was running and he stumbled, and I watch him, and I say, and he stands up. I go, and I just kept going. Right? We did that all the time. You know. Brush it off, and he would stand up and he would be okay. And yeah, there's once that someone actually, you know, I gotta pick him up. I gotta get him up. I'm like, no.
I did that recently at Halloween. There was a little baby who was like ding 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 ding, and I was like, oh, sorry, I just didn't mean to like pick up your kid. I thought my child had like run him over
different, though,
or something.
right?
I don't know what that instinct was, but she was like, oh, we fall all day. And I know that I had that experience where I was like, oh, she thinks I'm like, but I'm not, you know, like
right.
I get it. It was just like a knee jerk reaction.
Totally. And if you think your kid's responsible for that, that's different. That's like, oh,
maybe I didn't. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't want the kid to fall. And
yeah, it's a hard thing to like, stop. Yeah.
But I do think that instinct comes from like, you know, like when I used to like stop kids from crossing the street before I realized like, oh, kids know to stop. I used to like be the savior.
I actually was in Fire Island with my oldest friend. She was 7 months pregnant and has a toddler. And she was like, you know, it's a two like multiple staircases situation, and like there are gates, and like it's all good, and my friend's fine, and I am literally following this little girl around. Like, I'm like, how is anyone comfortable right now? Yeah. Now I have no kids, so I, you know,
right.
To where my friend, now we have a very honest, open. We've been friends since we were children. So she's like, Laura, she's fine. Like, it's all good. Like, you can, like,
it's hard to know that when you don't know the child, right? Like, like Ness was flying down the street, and there was, there's a parking lot, and she was like, should I stop him? Should I stop him? I was like, no, it's okay. I was so that person. Thank you so much. Like, it's hard to know. And I actually think that instinct has a lot to do with what we talk about here a lot, Laura, which is, I think we're meant to be doing this in a community, right? And so the instinct for me to pick up this child, and then of course, like, the modern day person will say, like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to touch your kid or something, but I meant to touch your kid. I meant to help. I meant to.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to do. Maybe it didn't come off that way, and she was fine, and it was fine.
Right.
But I think the instinct you have around the kid in Fire Island is like, I care about this kid.
I care about this kid, and I care about my friend who's very pregnant and like perhaps can't maneuver around as well as I could.
I've also been in the situation where like I'm at a friend's house and someone starts doing that for me, and I'm like, oh, thank God.
It's exactly
thank
right.
God. Yeah, great. If you could just do that for another 10 minutes, and then I'll take back over. But like, God bless you, really, because like it's a lot to do it all the time.
It's a lot. It's a lot to be on all the time, and it's not what we're built for.
No, we need breaks. We need we need friends like you that
care.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the kid's fine, but like, thank God for caring.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's vacillating between those two things, but it's like we have this big globe in Prospect Park, this big like tall globe that you can climb up to the top to, and he would go all the way up to the top way before he was ready to come down.
Oh, right.
So I had to climb up there with him and do all that kind of stuff, but I kept trying to repeat like that mantra that like fear is easy. Fear is easy.
What a little guru for you.
It brings up a lot of stuff for me in terms of like my own fear and my own hesitation about like where I've pushed myself and where I haven't. And like I want to like hashtag be like Calvin. Like I just like want to be like him. He's so brave. He's so brave.
Wow.
Like just jumping out there, running before he's ready. Like a kid could climb before he could walk. Just wanted to be on top of it all. Yeah, I want to be just like him. He's a great example.
Yeah,
for me. Yeah,
in bravery, other ways, or
yeah, he knows what he wants to, and I think that's something that I struggle with. I think especially as a woman, because for so long people kind of like told me what I should want, and it conflicted with what I actually did want, and then I was confused about that. You really? I
do know.
Yeah, I mean, you want to live in the city, be an actor, all those things that are just like, I do.
Why do I have to say it like that with a question mark?
The city is such a good example of that too. People like just don't get it. It's the first one they go for too. Like, why would you want to raise kids here? Why would you want to run a business here? Why? And I'm like, why not?
How do you grocery shop? How do you grow?
It's so funny. We just spoke to a nutritionist who she's from Germany, and she grocery shops all the damn time in this city.
Yeah. Well,
greatest place on earth.
It's different. It's challenging. You got to learn a new routine, and it's become more difficult with children. I'm not going to say that it's the same, because it's not. Like I was in Nebraska for doing Shakespeare with Calvin, and we had a car
playing Caliban in the Tempest with like a full face of makeup, hair for, I don't know, it took you like an hour and a half to do. I mean, she's an artiste. Friends.
That's my new type is monster.
Great.
I am pretty excited about it because it's real fun. Yeah. That's when you just kind of have to say thank you for thinking outside the box and casting this role that's traditionally not played by someone who looks like me, but they took said, hey, let's try this. Let's try something a little different than is expected.
How did you figure that out with Calvin? You were saying that the grocery shopping and the driving was easier there?
Yeah. Oh, heck yeah.
Life was easier there?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Even
it
like
was.
on a gig? Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, also, all I had to worry about was the gig.
Oh, right.
And I found a great daycare. And and also like my sister came and like spent a week with me during tech, and Jonathan was there for a lot of it as well. So because he had to come back and forth because we were producing comedy in the park. So he was doing that and then came back and spent the rest of the run with me there. So, but yeah, it was easier. Like there, it's challenging because of all the walking. It's challenging because you can't just put them in a car and in a car seat, It's
not a lot of grass.
And what, sorry again?
It's not a lot of grass.
And it's got a lot of grass.
No, I'm just saying like we don't have that much grass.
We don't. Yeah. Yeah.
To offer. Unless we're in the park. But
that's why you
you
just
win
like
some, you lose some.
you seek out other opportunities for your children to like experience those things. We went to England last year. This time we were in England, which is crazy.
Yeah, tell us about that. That was so cool to watch. So far.
Jonathan we were all getting a little stir crazy because we couldn't do the thing that we wanted to do most of all, which was theater. And he found this school out in Stratford, and it was a degree in Shakespeare, an MA in Shakespeare. And he said, he asked a few people, and they were just like, oh, what do you, it should be an MFA, an MA, what is that going to do? But I could just tell he wanted to do it. I was just like, I think you want it. And he's just like, yeah, I do. I was just like, okay. And then he's like, and maybe we could, and then he kind of he's like, and maybe I could, for a semester we could live out there. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds likely. So he started it and took the classes here, just did it online. And then all of a sudden he was just like, I think we could go. Like, we didn't have anything else going on. He could still work from over there. And I'm like, with a two, he turned 2 in England. His 2-year-old, we went to, anyway, I know I'm forgetting the name of the castle, but we visited a castle on his birthday. It's amazing.
So cool.
It was fantastic. It was hard. I don't mean to put rose-colored glasses on it, but it was also really challenging. I mean, flying overseas with a infant/toddler is no joke.
Well, what did Avital Schreiber say about this whole thing? This is Laura's
I use
takeaway.
it probably once a week. If people who set out to climb Everest don't do it because it's easy. And that hit me so hard when she said it, because I was like, shit, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, you've got to really want it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because everything else in my life that's been, I want it, it's hard, I do it. No, and that's how I know I'm not like particularly ready for this, is because like it's hard and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's hard and it ain't for me now.
I'm so happy.
You know? Like,
also, how old were you when you had Calvin?
Was it 41?
my mom was 41 when she had
You got
me.
time.
Yeah. Well,
Look
that's
at
what she
Ashley
says all the
also,
time.
right?
But I also wish I was 35.
Yeah, sure.
Like I wish I was.
Yeah.
But I also think like we're talking about the idea of like, hey, is this our only child? Do we want to have, how old is too old? And also like if adoption is something that you're even interested in, like it doesn't have to be a fresh baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're all different ages and things, and so we're considering that as well. The possibility if we have more children, would it need to be like?
Can I ask a very candid question?
Yeah.
Do you worry if the kid is older that you're not going to have the same experience that you've had sounds like a pretty joyous experience?
Yeah.
Where like you got a baby, it's a baby, and like you now are forming the entire outlook of this little person's life. Mm-hmm. If they're older, there's going to be trauma. There can be trauma. Is that a concern?
I mean, yes and no, because, well, I waited tables for a while, and then I actually was in childcare. I, did a lot of nannying and stuff like that. And I fell so in love with those kids that and I still like think about them.
She's the best.
and I wonder, like, the little girl who's now, gosh, is she like 14 or 15 now? She called me the other day. I like just started weeping because I was just like, she feels connected to me, and we don't speak that often, but the fact that she still considers me in her life, I was a part of her bringing up. So I think about those kids, those two, a lot, Harry and Sabine. I think about them all the time. We got real tight and spent a lot of just like, we didn't do a lot of crazy stuff. We just hung out, ate food, sat in the park.
All the good stuff.
Just all the good stuff, So, sorry, to answer your question though, there's always going to be trauma. Sometimes you do it, sometimes somebody else does it. And like, what do we do as a friend, if not help each other with our own trauma from whatever we went through, right? So I think the first thing is just being like a human and a friend in the space to that person, and trying to give them what they need and help them. Help them if they don't know what they need. Help them to figure out what that is, or set them up with the tools to do that. So I think about that, but also there's just like there's different personalities for different kids, and like Calvin, while the light of my life, the absolute light of my life, he challenges me every day. And I remember Sabine challenged me every day. Harry would just sit in my lap and like watch the people go by. We just hung out. Yeah. And yet I think she, and yet she's the one that like will reach out to me occasionally and like have those like moments of like, hey, how are you? And I was just like, whoa, hey.
It's such a sign of healthy attachment, actually. And it's like, oh my God, am I talking to myself about my son? What is happening here? It is such a sign of healthy attachment that they actually have the release of frustration out on you. That they have the wherewithal to assert themselves in a world where they have very little power.
Yeah.
So of course that's bonding.
Yeah. Yeah.
I forget that. When, Ness will be like, I don't like you. And literally Paz will go, I love you, Mommy. Can we kiss?
Is that what you have too? So they can balance each other out.
And it's not that he doesn't like me. It's that he needs to rage. He needs the emotion to be out of his body. Mm-hmm. And he needs it to be directed at a safe person, Mm-hmm. But I have that experience where Paz has no interest in really giving me a hard time unless she's really tired.
Yet.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, she does. She does. She gives me a hard time all night long. I still don't really sleep, but like,
oh.
But yeah, I think it really is just such a sign of healthy attachment when they're just giving it to you. It's not fun.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't be allowed to go head to head with someone who's not safe.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. No, and it's also like, and I find this, it's funny, I'm thinking about Sabine right now,
but she wouldn't reach out to you if she didn't feel like that connection.
And in comparing Sabine to Calvin, because he'll have these moments of rage. Complete rage. Yeah, like the Hulk coming out, right? Dragon. Complete dragon attack. And then I don't force myself on him, but if I allow myself to be in his space, it's like I could just count down from 10 and he'll be in my lap and just like need me to hold it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the balance of those two energies is extreme. Yeah. He's fire, and he also but that fire needs to be controlled in a way. Like he
Or just
knows
loved,
he needs it.
witnessed,
Yeah.
accepted.
But he knows he's I don't know if he knows he's a lot. That might be a little bit. He's
Well,
only 30.
where does that bravery come from? I mean, it's the same fire.
Yeah.
You can't have one without the other. When I'm talking about Ness being brilliant and this really bright light, it is that light and that flame and that heat that also just needs out sometimes.
Yeah.
Don't you feel it? I don't know. You're a pretty
absolutely.
intense lady.
Yeah.
You need to make a piece of art that says "fuck you" to the patriarchy. You need to.
Yes, you need to. You need to. God,
You
it
need
felt
to.
it felt so sad. It had us fight. I need to.
You need to. You have rage that needs to be expressed. You express it through art.
Yeah. I didn't realize how much I needed to do that until I was doing it. And
I was like, I don't really think Pompey comes out with an axe full of blood. And she was like, oh no, you can justify it however you want. I actually need that. I need that. And I was like, okay.
No, but like, yeah. I think
that was brave.
Your
brave.
arc needed it, to talk about memory, and you're like, what's my arc?
Yeah, no, it was good.
Your arc needed it, but we needed it. Like the audience needed that moment for you, because if you just came out at the end, with your black suit on, you'd be like, I'm confused.
Yeah, no, I know. I just wanted to just razz you for a second.
Yeah, no, it's weird
about your rage. And how you channel it for good. That's what these children are. That's what they're figuring out. He's like, oh, am I going to use my rage to tell my mom I don't like her, or am I going to do it with something else?
I don't know. Splatter some paint on the wall, or what am I?
I don't know. What am I going to do with this? Okay, so now we are wrapping up. You were an absolute fucking delight.
So are you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. In Measure for Measure.
An absolute pleasure.
It was so for me to rage, to be funny, to be on stage again. Thank you. To speak Shakespeare. What a joy. What a total joy. And to be in your company. We talk a lot about consent culture because, like Jessie, who's our mutual friend.
Yes.
I really enjoyed rye parenting, and they had an amazing person, part of their team. What was her position that she was doing? Was it an intimacy coordinator? I had never seen such a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we're really moving in the right direction. We got some bumps in the road. It's weird out there. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
But that was cool.
Thanks. I'm glad. It's one of those positions that it's hard because you don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen of how to make this thing, because sometimes it gets confusing when we have too many voices.
Yeah.
But Layla was great. And I thought she gave a really lovely bit of support and allowed us to continue to not feel restricted by you can't do that and don't do this.
Well, there's a rape scene in it, you know?
Yeah. And we wanted it to feel threatening. But we didn't want the actors to feel that they were in danger. Before the scene every night, Jonathan and Aileen would go to each other and check in. And they would say, they kind of had a routine and said, I'm so excited to be able to act with you.
Oh, it's so special.
You know what I mean? And they had that moment. And then after it happened, they also went up to each other and checked in. And Jonathan was talking about it recently and just saying how he felt like in the beginning he was doing it for her, but throughout the process, she's like, this was also really important for him as the person who was doing the thing, to feel that it wasn't it wasn't a too long a run, but it was long enough that by the end, they weren't pulling apart and they were actually coming together, even though the scene was one in which two people were being he was being so extremely brutal to her. Yeah. How do you wrap your brain around that at the end? How do you go home with that at the end of the night?
Well, you created an amazing culture at Smith Street Stage, and it was like such an honor to be a part of. Such an honor. Such a beautifully diverse cast that was so talented. And,
yeah. I heard about Tobias and saying did you hear about him saying to Aileen using the Chinese word for sister in their scene?
No, I didn't know that.
One of the last, he changed it. So I forget exactly what the word is. I'd probably not be able to say it exactly correct anyway, but he said that to her, and it made me go, well, first of all, we should have been doing that the whole time, but also like to tap into like, and that's why you have and tapping into other cultures and having other people be able to speak in Chinese or in Mandarin in the same room, which would happen. You know, you walk in and you felt the other cultures. It feels different when you have a room filled with different kinds of faces. It's just like, it's exciting and scary, but also like refreshing because I don't want to hear the same old voices anymore. I want new perspectives, and I want new types of families. I think the play could be done in a lot of different ways. I'm really pleased with the way that we did it, but it also makes me think. I remember even during like auditions and stuff, we were thinking about the role of the brother and the sister and what different races said, you know, having, you know, the different stories that were being told, to have a different complexion behind bars is really powerful.
Race conscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do we want? What are we saying here?
Yeah.
And then of course there's also like talent and vibe and all those other things in the room, but
yeah, it was a very, very special experience, and you really set the tone for that. We came together today to talk about your experience being a mom, but a mom artist. Yum, yum, yum. Any parting words to the curious folks who might be interested in adopting one day, if they have a similar experience to you?
Yeah, what do you got for me?
We're basically talking to Laura.
Yeah. You're never really ready for it. It's just whether or not you want it or not. So I think, being honest with yourself, you can do it yourself, but it really is helpful to have a community that also supports it. And you might not be able to do all the things anymore, but the things that you do will feel more rich, or at least they do to me. And I mean, even just going into an audition now, it just feels like I feel completely different, like because of what's going on. Like there's a less of a desperation and more just kind of like, my real work actually happens when I pick that little guy up. And this is something that is my life, but it's changed me in a way that I'm like, thank God I'm a mom. Because I don't know if I ever would have learned that if I hadn't. That being said, I don't think it is for everybody. So that's okay. You are not less of a human or woman that you make a different choice.
But you're part of the village, dude. Like, that's the thing. This is an ecosystem. I'm just underscoring. Yeah.
And maybe that just means that, like, hey, I know I want to be able to like have those experiences, but like I also had them like being I wasn't family, but I also had them being in childcare. And if there's a human in your life who's raising children, and I'm sure you know a few, obviously you already told a story that you do have a few, and then tap into that. That person will probably be like, come on in, we got plenty.
Scratch that itch. Yeah. Scratch that ant itch. Delicious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or adopt. I mean,
Yeah,
it seems like it's been a beautiful, beautiful,
it
beautiful
absolutely
experience.
has.
He's
know
a special guy.
If anyone wants to
Yeah. So,
message me.
Yeah. So how can we get in contact with you? How can we support Smith Street Stage and your work? Tell
Sure.
us.
Well, you can contact me. I'm on Instagram at BALOUHWO, BALUHU. So you can find me there. And I post about theater stuff, and I also post about mom stuff. But Smith Street, you can find us. Obviously, we have a website and things like that. We're also on Instagram at Smith Street Stage, and we are, and we have MailChimp for like updates and things like that. If you want to like come to our shows, but the best way to support like making more conscious work for Smith Street is to become a subscriber for us, which is a way that we can not only be supported, because it's not like a lot of money, but it's like a Netflix account whereby we know that there's a little bit coming, and it allows us to plan for the work that we will do, because there's a lot of waiting in between the projects so that we can build up the funds to put the time and the care into stuff like Measure. And possibly to do it again. I don't know. I think there's a little bit more left in that for me. I would love to be able to bring that back to life on another stage. But if I can't, it's theater. It's okay. But those are the ways to support diving back into these older texts and really bringing out new conscious ways that this poetry can open up our eyes in ways that is, I hope, enlightening and gives you something to talk about and maybe a different perspective as to what these plays can bring out and why they should be invested in.
Thanks for opening up our eyes.
My pleasure.
Beautiful, beautiful perspective. I'm so grateful for it.
Thanks for having me. This was lovely to combine my two great loves.
I know. It's really exciting.
It's really cool. Yeah.